All right, so in chapter 9 in our book, Humanity by Peoples, they're covering kinship and forming relationships and groups. And so a kin group is any group of people that see themselves as related. And this doesn't have to be a blood relation, etc. Like in our culture, my kin, I can maybe trace to second or third cousins. But in some cultures, you're related to everyone in the culture in one way or another. And I think that's super interesting. In my subculture of my church family, even people I'm not blood related to call me Brother Fred or Uncle Fred. And I just love that relationship. So even though there's all these little kids running around that are not biologically connected to me, they're connected to me in my spiritual community. And so they still call me by that kinship term of uncle. And we have that sort of relationship. And that's how I view the older people in my church as fathers or mothers. I don't have many grandfathers anymore because of my age. And it's a weird realization that I actually am a father to many now in a spiritual sense in my community. But that's how I treat older people. I either treat them as fathers or mothers. My peers I treat as brothers or sisters or cousins, and then younger people as like my own children or nieces and nephews. And you can imagine the kinds of bonds of community that provides. The next term is called unilineal descent. And this is where greater importance is placed upon either the patriarchal or the matriarchal lines of your family. Remember, patriarch means male, matriarch means female. And so in unilineal descent, uni meaning one, you're following one line more so than the other. So in our culture, it's mostly a patrilineal descent, where we trace our name and our ancestry through our father's line. In fact, it's traditional to take your father's surname rather than your mother's when you were born. And even in marriage, it is customary, although not required, that the woman will often take on the surname of her husband and leave her family name behind. So that would be unilineal descent. Patrilineal descent, there's 3 times as many cultures that follow this model like we have in the United States, where we see ourselves related more to our father's lineage, and then we have the matrilineal descent. Lineage means related unilineal group. So in the Bible, when it talks about Jesus came from the house and lineage of David, he is following that family line from David all the way down to his parents. But it's coming through that male patrilineal line from David. Clans is where we have unilineal ancestry with generational depth. So especially if you come from Scotland or Ireland or are from Nordic descent, you can even see that in the name, like Christian's son, Jacob's son. And what that implies is you are the son of Christian, you are the son of Jacob. And so there is some ancient distant ancestor that all the people of your group or clan are looking back to. So for the Jews, excuse me, Jews, Muslims, I should say Jews as in the ethnic group and Arabs as in the ethnic group, both trace themselves back to Abraham being the father of their clans or tribes. Okay, next is phratries, and I'll spell this for you. It's P-H-R-A-T-R-I-E-S. That's P-H-R-A-T-R-I-E-S. And this is a loose association of clans, usually linked religiously through some sort of myth or tradition. Almost like we would think of like fraternities. Phratries are these associations of clans or groups that have some sort of religious connection or connotation. In that sense, you could look at like the children of Israel. You had 12 different tribes, 12 different patriarchs, but they're all connected under the clan of Abraham or the lineage of Abraham. And Moieties, this is Moieties, Moieties. We have divisions into half, often associated with opposite forces. For example, light and dark, summer and winter, etc. And in many tribal groups, you need a combination of different clans to fulfill some sort of religious purpose or ritual. So, for example, among the Hopi, if they want to conduct a rain dance, it's not just the whole tribe collectively doing the dance. Different groups, like the Snake Clan or the Corn Clan or the Hummingbird Clan, would need to perform specific rituals that are done in unison to bring about this supplication to the gods. And so in these moieties, different clans have different roles and purposes, but they work collectively under the overarching force of the clan at large. Next, we have cognatic descent. Cognatic descent. And this is all individuals who can trace their descent back to a common ancestor of the group through both the female and male lines. And so Jesus, once again, is a great example because both Mary and Joseph could trace themselves both back to David through their family lines. So that's called cognatic descent. Next, we have bilateral kinship. Bilateral, and that is where your descent is traced through both your family lines. And often people will emphasize this by like hyphenating their name, like Helen Bonham Carter. It was important for her to keep her family name Bonham, but I think her married name would be Carter. And so showing her loyalty or connection to two different groups. So that would be bilateral kinship. It's interesting that when we talked about horticulture societies, like the very beginnings of agriculture, those societies historically were primarily dominated by women or matriarchal societies. And this is where you had a lot of like mother goddess worship, fertility goddess, and you see a lot of references to this in the New Testament, especially the city cults of like Diana and Artemis. In fact, even this idea of Easter comes from a derivation of Ishtar, the fertility goddess of the Egyptians, and is part of why Orthodox Christians call it Resurrection Sunday and not Easter or Ishtar Sunday. I always like to mess with people and ask them if they're hiding Ishtar eggs this year or if they're going to do something a little more having to do with Jesus. But anyways, onward. When we move into agrarian cultures with more intensive agriculture, these typically tend to be dominated by patriarchies or males. Even though there are some societies where the family line is carried out through the women, your family name, the property, etc., I don't know of any examples where societies are completely dominated by women. Even though women may have those sorts of privileges, it seems that even in those matriarchal societies, men still hold high leadership roles. Okay, and I think that will conclude that one.